and it comes from the big book. And we're going to look at page 64 today, Paul. It'll be the second paragraph. We did exactly the same thing, page 64. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. Being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, was what had defeated us, we considered its common manifestations. Resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease, for we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore, we were burned out. All right, Paul, that should get us started.
Thanks, Mike. Welcome, everybody. If there's anyone new here, this isn't an AA meeting. It's just a discussion about the AA principles and hopefully a presentation of a different understanding about the exact nature of the wrong. Now, and it's fundamental. It doesn't exclude the other understanding. It's just maybe it'll work better for you. And that understanding is, the contrast is drawn in the book. So one of the statements is, we manufacture our own misery. What we're saying is, we don't manufacture our own misery. Misery is manufactured, but not by us. Yeah, we are the problem. We're not saying that here. Do an inventory on your defects and your this and that. We're not saying that here. That's said in the book already. We're bringing a different understanding to maybe see that which has defeated us is this idea of self. Hold on a second. Cat wants out. There you go. Go. Yeah. And we read it just there, page 64. The whole premise we're speaking of is being convinced self, manifested in various ways, is what has defeated us. So there's a difference between us and self. I do not believe us is self. I think self is a singularity. It's an activity, like someone was saying earlier. Selfing really describes it better. And that activity is shared by many of us. Yeah. And that activity of selfing has dominated us to the point we sought relief no matter what. Yeah, even though we knew better, it didn't work. Even though we were willing to pay any consequence tomorrow not to feel uncomfortable now. It just got to such an extreme level that what usually would keep us from the hot flame wasn't working. We just kept on being drawn to feeding this thing with alcohol and drugs. We thought we were putting out a fire, but it was really gas for the fire. And then we got, completely defeated by it, to the point where we were ending up in places we never intended to go, jails, institutions, and maybe death. So, it says, didn't we set the ball rolling? I don't believe we set the ball rolling. I believe this selfing has set the ball rolling. Yeah. And we're not trying to change the other understanding. We're just adding on to it. because maybe over time, after you've looked at your role in things, maybe you've seen something else's role in things. Yes? And so maybe your understanding can grow to move away from you're the one who did everything to seeing that which led you to do that. Yeah? They're different. You're the one who did everything, and that which led us to do it is completely different. Now, it has nothing to do with differentiating the steps or anything else, service, concepts, traditions, none of that. It's just at the primary point where we all start from, which is perhaps there's a better way, trusting something, trusting the infinite rather than finite self. That's the spot before the branch of the road. Yeah, is that. So we're here just to offer that as a possibility. Maybe you could do a 5-minute inventory, calling resentments yours, and then just calling resentments, and see how it feels. Yeah, see if there's a lightness that comes from seeing it as a resentment that's not available when you keep calling it your resentment. Yeah, maybe that will trigger something, and then follow that crumb down that path and see maybe the thoughts aren't yours. Not chanting the thoughts aren't yours, but having a sense feeling that they're not yours. Yeah, a recognition based on not a mental concept, but on a certain sense of, yeah, how could these be my thoughts if all these people have them? I mean, obviously, there's something going on there that I come up with a sense of incredible terminal uniqueness when I'm just a common run-of-the-mill alcoholic, seemingly. Yeah? What the hell does that? So I think it's like it's disguise, or it's masking, or like the octopus puts out the ink. It's constantly keeping us in the dark because we're the host that it's living off of, really. Yeah, I mean, they have those examples in nature where there's a parasite in something, and that parasite, like candida is something that grows in a lot of people. Yes, and that candida has a desire, and that desire is to eat like floury, sugary shit. Yeah, because it breaks it down and the candida grows. So therefore, it finds itself in a belly of a human being, and it can't call out to the bakery. Yeah, it doesn't have a phone or shit, but it does. It can actually use the host to get what it wants. Yeah. So now it directs the host in a weird way. It would be great to have a triple chocolate icing coffee cake from Entenmann's. And so you're driven to get that flowery thing. You eat it, the candida is a success. And then there's an identity that grows as you're a lover of triple chocolate coffee cake. Yeah. And that you're starting to wear Entenmann t-shirts and shit. And the head identifies as the courier of the candida. You know what I mean? We're like, yeah, I've had every kind of coffee cake in New York. You know what I mean? You write little blogs about it, and it's all being driven by a candida in you. This is, yeah. I mean, it would be all right and fun, but it took us to absurd lengths, didn't it? And it left us high and dry. Have you ever seen a friend of yours that got into crystal meth? They've turned into something else completely. Their eyes are rabid, and it's just incredible. There isn't any solid, long-lasting, independent thing. Yeah, if you're taken over, you start looking at like someone who's been taken over. Just like I used to do a lot of coke, so I could recognize someone else who did coke, like from across of the bar. I could look like if I had a mile sight, I could probably see them. Yeah, because I could recognize it. Yet all the while, I'm identified as that. Yes? This is the bondage of self. Yeah. So this point is, I don't believe we manufacture our own misery. I don't. I don't think we manufacture our own joy. I don't think we manufacture hate. I don't think we manufacture love. I think we can manufacture a giant spectrum of stuff, but it's based on what's running us. Yeah. So we have the example of having our factory run by alcoholism. So it manufactures the same products that your factory run by alcoholism does. Yes. Now the factory could produce a lot of goods, but it keeps producing the same old goods, not because of the factory, but what's running it. Yeah. That understanding works for me. The other understanding doesn't. The other understanding is I'm still laden with guilt and shame based on all this shit that I did while under the influence that I never chose to do. Yeah? And there's no way out of it, because there's always going to be the sense I was the doer of all that. Yeah? And then you sort of live out like a mental prison sentence. Yeah? So sometimes you'll do tons of service and shit, not in the spirit of service, but to try to erase your past criminal record. Yeah. So you'll do a dualistic move. You're going to be a perfect St. Francis because you were a motherfucker before. That's the bondage of self and duality. You're bound by this, I have to be a good person, like you were bound by thinking you were a bad person. That's slavery. Yes. This is about freedom, isn't it? Please relieve us of the bondage of self. The bondage of self, a lot of times it walks around as an identity. Yeah. Like you're identified with the Golden State Warriors. Yeah. So if they lose, you're like, it's like you lost your fucking dog or someone in your family died. And they don't know who the hell you are, the Golden State Warriors. Yeah. I remember I was at a football game years ago for the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm from New York. So for some reason, I had a New York something on it, right? So now everyone in the area was yelling at me, and they were going, "We're beating your ass." And I'm saying, wait a minute, who's the we? You're not beating. I'm not the guy on the football field getting beaten up by the other guy on the football field. Yeah. See, the identity is amazing. And we'll fucking go to war based on a false identity. Yeah. We see it now in this world. People are identifying it being in different camps and fucking hating the other camp. It's like Texas against Oklahoma all day. Yeah. Just no one on Texas can do any wrong, and it's all Oklahoma's fault. And it goes back and forth. This is all mental identity, yeah? Just like I was identified as a drug user. And in the drug user world, I thought I was pretty up on the high pecking order. I shot coke. People who snorted coke, I looked down upon. I did. I said, fuck, you're wasting it. I thought I was on the top of the pyramid of a strange mental hierarchy. You know what I mean? When I got arrested, I wasn't treated any different, but I thought I should be. This is insane. Where does this come from? Where the problem resides? Where is that? The mind, the mental activity. Yep. So, yes, in the beginning, you go into AA because you've been trying to shirk responsibility. And then you say, yes, we take responsibility for all this shit. But I hope as you grow in AA, it grows to another point where maybe the responsibility turns into accountability, which is quite different. Yeah, it's a different feeling. Accountability doesn't give a large amount of room for guilt and shame. Yeah, it's sort of like a business thing. You've dealt with the account and it's over. I'm not ruminating for 30 years about it. Yes? So this way, if I didn't do this shit, just like I used to say with the dog, fuck, the dog shits on the neighbor's lawn, the neighbor gets pissed off at me, calls me up, I go there because it's quote unquote my dog. I clean the shit up, I make an amends to the dude, and I say, hey, I'm not gonna walk the dog this way anymore. Yeah? That's it. But now I don't think I took a shit on the lawn. Yeah? I don't go, why did I take that shit? I don't go over it, over and over it. Why didn't I go down Maple Street? I didn't. It was the dog. Yeah? Yeah. If the sense of my is there, it goes into a file, and the head can go back to it at any time and ruminate and think of what it would have been like if I didn't do that and all this shit, doesn't it? We want to have abstinence. We don't. We want all those little libraries the head has full access to. They go over the past and ruminate about a future. We want those doors to be closed. We can't do it, but something else can. Yeah? So you lose interest in this shit. So maybe your idea of the past is, hey, if it was supposed to happen, it did. If it wasn't, it didn't. There you go. You know what I mean? My head would love to think about I should have been a pro boogie boarder, but I forgot about my getting run over twice by the car. Yeah? The whole story of going off in the head had to deny a huge fact. I got run over by a car. I don't have any balance in that leg. Oh, let's forget that. You should have been It's just insane, is it? And why is there a listening to it? Because for some reason we think it's us. Yeah? Or it's about us. If it was about Stanley and you were Paul, you'd shut it off in 30 seconds. Yeah? If the story of your life presented by the head was presented as Stanley's, you wouldn't fucking get to it. As an audio book, you wouldn't even listen to the second page. Yeah? You would have lost interest in it. But because it's spun as us, the head just eats it up. Yeah. It's like someone, I think Mickey was talking about it. Yes. To see the distinction between the glove and the hand. In this case, let's say Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde is a sense of self, and Dr. Jekyll is a sense of self. So there's a self trying to get out of self, yeah? So there's the Paul before I got sober, and then there's a Paul that got formulated after I got sober. I'm neither of those, yes? I don't know what I am, but I know what I'm not, yeah? Yeah. I may like the New York Yankees, but they're not sending me a check, yeah? I don't play for them. They probably never have heard of me. Yeah. So, yeah. I just like to get this point across. We're just putting out a humble diagnosis of the exact nature of the wrong. And I found freedom from the problem by seeing it wasn't me. That's what happened. Yeah. It happened in a minute. I saw that I wasn't self, and then the possibility of being free from it became obvious and became available. And it told me, as soon as that became available, it told me why it hadn't been available, because I was identified as self trying to get out of an identified self. Yes? So finally in my life, I identified self, but identified self as another self. Yeah. So Dr. Jekyll was trying to get out of Mr. Hyde. Yeah. All being the same, yes? Self can't get out of self. They both go. There wasn't a Dr. Jekyll and there isn't a Mr. Hyde. As long as there's a Dr. Jekyll, the possibility of being a Mr. Hyde is available. Yeah? So you see you're neither. So when someone was sharing before, yeah, whatever. So So this just changes things. When it says this, we made decisions based on self that set off trains of circumstances, brought us misfortune. I see that as very clear. Yes. Yeah. Then other parts of the book I disagree with only because there's an identification as that which has defeated us. Yeah. That's all. I don't want to change anything. I just want to see it in a different light. Yeah. Yeah. Why? Because it worked. It's brought great relief. So here, the difference is in the act of being identified as self, sometimes the problem will not exist for you, like it's described on page 84. If you like that to be a new basis, you see the problem doesn't exist as you. It's different, yes? The problem not existing for you could still be the problem existing. It's just for that moment's not existing for you. But to get the clarity that it doesn't exist as you, where you've seen the act of identification and you're not bound by it, yeah, that to me is real relief. Yeah. That's simple. And that's what we're speaking of, really. We're speaking of the problem doesn't exist as us. Even while it was existing, it wasn't existing as us. Yeah. It was on us or coupled with us or sucking us up, but it wasn't existing as Paul. I am not that. Yeah. Yeah. They say in recovery, a spiritual condition. So what we recognize living is a physical condition, yes, emotional condition, mental condition. So to make it to be something other than those, they call it a spiritual condition. So at least it says it's not the physical, the mental, or the emotional. It's a spiritual condition, something different than those conditions. Because we obviously live as if we're a physical, mental, emotional condition. Yeah. So they give us another name so that we can use a negation of the other three. So if I'm a spiritual condition and therefore I'm not a physical, mental, or maybe I am, but at least the spirit is first. Yeah. So you always get this, the emphasis changes. So instead of the emphasis on the mental condition, which is the bondage of self, the emphasis goes on to a spiritual condition, which is what? It's not of the mental condition, basically. Yeah. Find out what it is for you, but it's not of the mental. That's the clearest thing to know. Yeah, like Einstein said, you can't seek a solution from the system that made the problem. Yeah, it just doesn't work. So, yeah. But I'm also, to get in my opinions today, I do not believe spirit has a malady. Yeah, I don't believe there's a spiritual sickness because I don't think spirit is like a mental or a physical thing. It doesn't have mental illnesses. Yeah. It's not of a mental activity. I don't think there's spiritual illness, really. Yeah. I think the spirit is pristine and untouched by all that goes on. Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm falling. This is falling down. All right. Thanks. Got a lot to get
All
off
right,
my.
thank you, Paul. So that was, no, bring it on, please. Because I was going to ask you about that portion of the second paragraph that was read about from it stem all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. And then it goes on to say that the spirituality, when it's overcome, we straighten out.
I don't
And then I
believe that.
remember hearing you talk one time.
Hold
Yeah.
on again. I have the cat. Hold on. Hold on. Come here.
Have any questions, please feel free to use the raise hand feature and we'll have Paul address them.
This isn't, first of all, Mike, also, we're not wanting to change the wording of the
Yeah,
big book. Yeah. Yes. We're
right.
just we're just tuning up
No,
an
not at all.
yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because obviously, if all you knew was
absolutely.
a mental, physical, emotional condition, you would put those qualities into what you describe as a spiritual condition. And the mental condition can get sick, the physical can get sick, the emotional condition can get sick. So let's say we have a spiritual illness. I don't believe the spirit is of a mental, physical, emotional condition. Yeah. I don't think it gets sick. I don't think it gets well either. Yeah. This is
Okay.
just an opinion of a member. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. This is the opinion I have. Like we say in AA, experience, strength, and hope. And maybe after 30 years of sobriety, you have opinions also.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are these are opinions from observation. Yeah. I never seen well, whatever. I just don't think spirit is sick or gets yeah.
Okay. Were you ready for a question, Paul? We have Mary. She has her hand raised. Come on in, Mary.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Uh, hi there. Very, very good afternoon to you guys. Thank you, Paul. It's incredible what you're doing, and I appreciate it. And I just want to make one little comment. Um, so basically, like resentment, for instance, as David Bohm would say with Krishnamurti, and apart from Krishnamurti, it's a type of field. Okay, we are a type of field, and afflictions, as we like to call them, like resentments, are a field, and they exist in their own independent right. And something happens along the way where our antennas or detectors somehow absorb this energy. And yeah, through trauma, through the various acrobatics we go through to become addicts. So yeah, that's a very clever, very smart comment. And yeah, I think we should bring David Bohm's ideas about. He was he was the one that I first heard about, like selfing. The actual process. He'd bring it up, like for instance, there's no paper, there's papering, and I forget. There's a specific name that he put to this type of language of process being, and I think that that's wonderful as well. But my question is this: and really, I've not really seen an answer to this anywhere in 12 steps, and I am in program. Um, how can you frame the defects that come from something like having autism? Like for instance, um, many people with autism are addicts because we're compulsive. I mean, that's just, we're born like that, and we're compulsive. So a disproportionate, like, I don't know, 50, 60, 70% of us have some sort of addiction of some sort. And stuff like sensory, okay, sensory, just these goddamn horrific sensory issues, and isolation. Now, I know I didn't ask for this shit. I know I didn't ask for it. I mean, there's a lot of things that I can see my role in, okay, but I didn't ask for that, and I'm struggling like hell to better these symptoms. Okay, so I'm just not under a slave of this bullshit. I really, I can't even begin to say how being autistic is hell. But if you could somehow frame it, it's your wisdom. I really love to hear your opinion on that, Paul. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, first of all, I don't know the specific question, but I didn't have autism or the experience of autism. So I don't think I can do it justice because I haven't been in those shoes. The idea that we're speaking of about resentment and stuff is really the sense that precedes the resentment after it comes up, which is the my, yeah? The ownership of the resentment, just like the head will own what you would say that somehow you had something to do with the autism that seems to dominate this experience, yeah? This sense of ownership of stuff we have nothing really to do with is, I feel, is a large point of heaviness. So I put a lot of attention on a simple word that signifies a lot, which is my, my. And if you put my in front of any word, it changes the word that comes after it. Yeah. It crudely captures a movement of mental meaning giving that I feel is really the depot of heavy living. Yeah. So if you can at least see by reading the big book, there's not a big leap from the paragraph we read, being convinced self, to the next paragraph, resentment is the number one offender. I don't see how you can lose the track that they're talking about the manifestations of self and then they speak of resentment right away. I would say resentment is a manifestation of self or selfing. Yeah, I don't think there's a big, it's not like this sentence was on page 64 and then what I'm coupling it with is on page 98. It's right the next one. So obviously you could look at what's being presented as describing manifestations of something other than us that has defeated us through these manifestations. And one of them is resentment, fears, harm done to others in the pursuit of what you want. But really, how do they defeat us is the sense of owning of them. Yeah. The my grievance, the my resentment, the my fear. So a lot of people try to do inventories on resentment and fear, but when they do them, it's preceded by my. And after they do the inventory, it's still preceded by my. So it's my resentment before I did the inventory and my resentment after I did the inventory. I think that's an important thing to stop at the border, so to speak. Yeah. Don't let my resentment get in. Yeah. So, yes, I saw it as my resentment. Now I see it as resentment. It's completely different. Completely. So, if you really wanted to, the activity that we're attempting to point out is that the transfer of a lot of meaning from whatever or wherever, I would say from the mental state into our life. Yeah. Through this acting of being identified as the mental state, which is selfing. Yeah. So the first thing I would inquire of or investigate would be the bridge of my, my. Yeah. And not so much on the things that come after, because a lot of people want to know whatever, want to dissect resentment or whatever. But I'm really, that's not my interest. My interest is the feeling before the resentment, the sense of ownership. Because I feel resentments with if you're looking through a lens of self-centeredness, resentments are going to appear because there's a separation between me and what I'm looking at. And then in that separation, when it comes to needs and desires, there may be a built-in competition. So I'm going to feel like somebody has stopped me from getting what I wanted or whatever. Yeah. So the idea of living resentment free as that which produces resentment doesn't work to me. I just see how can we live free with resentments. Yes. Yeah. Well, you can live free with resentments when they're not yours. Yeah. You can graze and there'll be another species, and you can cohabitate. And then actually, then the resentment view, not triggering a consequence, is quite valuable because it tells you, yes, a lot. It tells you that what you're relying on is a failed system that produces resentments, anxieties, and shit like that. Yeah. While it's running the show. So, yeah, I mean, I believe if you can see that which you're relying on as a failed system, it goes a long way
Oh,
to relief. Yeah.
well,
It's just,
yeah, and this is a very, very important observation of yours, because one core feature of autism, because this really relates, is what is called compulsive negative rumination. So a
oh,
core
that's it.
feature, yes, a core feature. I mean, it's basically almost all of us. We have this. We have this. It's through executive dysfunction. It's a failed system. Okay, so it's part of the frontal lobe not working. We're born like that. So we tend to dwell and dwell and dwell and dwell, and then get our feelings hurt really bad because we're so sensitive. I mean, we can see things that and detect things other people cannot detect. And so we take things so personally. It's very, very, very common in this group. And as a result, a lot of us are addicts because this is so painful that
Right.
I wasn't out in the street raising hell, with my addiction. I was like in a fetal position, numbing myself out because, I wasn't actually going. So this is interesting dialogue with you. Yes, this is a failed system. It's because something's glitchy in the frontal lobe, and it's just good to observe it as a field or process, and try not to let the fields of resentment and fear and all that other shit that takes us down grab hold. Try to
Well,
not let
there's
it
a
grab
way, in
hold.
a way, the spirit of AA would just to admit you're outmatched. Yes.
Yeah,
So you
exactly,
can't
exactly.
you can't protect the system. You have to find another source, yeah, which
Yeah,
in our view is the idea of a higher power, or
yeah, yeah,
let's say that which is before the autism, right where you are, that which is before thought, that which is what they would call spirit, yes? Because I would say spirit is the basis of everything else. It's not an attribute of a physical condition, it's the basis of everything. So
correct.
that's the reliance that we that's made available and is the guiding light of recovery in for the 12 steps world, is to admit that I'm outmatched, really, instead of trying to keep, just admit I can't fucking do it, and then something does it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're
Beautiful.
welcome. Yeah, thank you. Yes, very much. Come back, Mary, if you like. Yep.
Thank you,
Anyone else?
Mary. Next up, we have Annette.
Oh, Annette.
Yes, Annette has a question.
Sorry, I'm trying to get my video to go on. There we go. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, so Mary makes some interesting comments, and the definition of addiction involves compulsive behavior. And as a person who's interested in improving my own executive function, I've learned a lot and read a lot. I don't think I have autism, although that was implied to me during rehab. But what I do have is, I get great comfort in my routines when they're functional. And I am just starting to see the value of good versus bad physical routines, mental routines, etc. And sometimes in the rooms, people say things that are very hurtful. And one thing people with autism and ADHD share is emotional sensitivity at times. Then there's also this whole issue of some, I don't know where it is, if it's even in the big book, but that they talk about feeling like something was different from a very young age. And I think that statement is used to capture neurodivergent people into addiction programs. And what most of them do is use a substance because they're self-medicating. So I don't know, I have a lot of other opinions about that, but how do you, my question is, how do you, when you see someone just manifesting their self and being really kind of rude or insulting or sexist or marginalizing to someone, what do you say in a meeting to that? Because I have been repeatedly offended by members of my home group who are just regular guys having fun. They're supporting each other, laughing in a very neurotypical way, which to me is like being 11 years old and laughing at the guy making the dumbest joke in the room. And it's one thing to laugh at yourself, but what if you're insulting someone else or marginalizing them when that person's making their joke? They're victimizing someone.
Well,
With their
again,
manifestation of self.
My observation around some of that, it's very good to have a sponsor that you can speak to. Yeah. And then maybe
Yeah.
you're speaking to some of the people, not at the meeting, but after it or something. Yeah, that can happen. Yes. I really feel the value of when this kind of stuff comes up in the community is to speak to a sponsor or someone you trust. And then, and again, everything, I never have a rote answer to things, I just usually stay in the condition that I'm outmatched and then something works out. So, sometimes I'll say something, sometimes I won't, but yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess for this action figure, I'm struggling to process these connections because I see them now where I didn't see them before. It's so
Yeah.
obvious.
Yeah. Yes, well, that's more and more of that's going to happen probably. But hey, remember, AA's it's a perfect program, but with people in it. That's that's its
No,
down.
I don't think these people mean to hurt other people's feelings. It's just a habit that is so ingrained. A
Yeah,
habit of
yeah.
the self.
And you're in the East Coast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the East Coast has a lot of that too. It's a certain sense of humor, usually at the expense of others. Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah.
It's like
But I
a
don't know, hon. I would again, if I
pandemic.
had someone I was working with there, and maybe someone who goes to the same meetings, I would speak to them, and yeah, maybe one sponsor can speak to another sponsor about their sponsees. Yeah, that's how it sometimes works. Yeah, but thank you. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Annette. Next we have Kate. Kate, you have a question for Paul today or a comment?
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Paul.
Hey.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you talk a little more about what you were saying? Because I believe what you're saying is true. Like when you said there's nothing wrong with the spirit. Because when I was talking to someone about 20, 25 years ago, I said to them, I'm really messed up. And he said to me, I don't see that. He said, there is absolutely nothing wrong with your spirit. Yes, you have some problems, but there's nothing wrong with your spirit. And
Yeah.
I could hear that, but I still don't really get it. And then I guess my question, Paul, is about that. And then what do you think then it means in the big book when it says, you know, resentment's the number one offender, it destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. So it's saying that my spirit is ill at ease or diseased, for we've not only been mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. So what are they saying in contrast to what you're saying? Can you explain that?
Well, I don't know what they were saying.
Okay.
I don't. I mean, they would. You'd have to ask them, whoever they were who was writing it. But how I interpret that is it was just a deeper level of a mental condition. Yeah. Not the surface chatting and everything, but a different condition of a different level of the mental condition that can actually have a sense of well-being or irritable, restless, and discontent. So I would think that was the agitation. It was deeper than thoughts and the chatter, you know, how you're going about now, but an underlying malaise. Yes, it's like in Buddhism they would call it dukkha, a vague suffering or a dissatisfaction. Yeah. Remember, the mental state is agitated already, and its agitation is almost like it's high, you know, low tide and high tide is hate and desire, you know. It desires things and hates things, yes? So it's moving away from things, trying to, and moving towards things, trying to. And there's a lot of failures and halfway successes, so it's irritated. Yeah, I don't think it's the spirit at all. So it's sort of like if a weather front came in and there was a lot of movement and there was thunder and shit like that. That's not the sky. Yeah, that's a weather front that moved into the sky. Yeah, the weather front doesn't stay there for 30 years. It dissipates and there's the sky again. And then other weather fronts, maybe sunny, maybe humid, whatever. All this shit happens about, but the sky is exactly the same. It's just open, spacious, and available there. Yeah, so things appear in it, but what appears in it doesn't really represent its nature. Its nature is to be open and accommodating, allowing a lot of shit to appear in it. Yes? I would say that's sort of like an interpretation of what I feel spirit is, like that. Yes? So I don't believe the spiritual condition changes. I believe what appears in it can change, which is the mental and all this other shit. Yeah? So that's my feeling about it. I think there's an absolute state that's not a state. I think it's that which we were before we were born and will be after we die. Yeah. I don't think it's a broken, sporadic continuum. I think it's whatever, eternal, forever. It's not of time. Yeah. I would say, way you can say it here is awareness. Yes. Like an onness or a just bright onness. So to me, that's what I feel a spirit is, or spirit is. Yes. And more importantly, because I can learn what it ain't. Yeah. I can know what it isn't. So the way I get a sense of spirit isn't, well, it is through that, feeling that, but it has a lot to do with seeing what I'm not. Yeah. Yeah. So I do not believe I'm a lot of things. I don't believe I'm a mental condition, a physical condition, an emotional condition. I don't. They always change constantly. Yeah. I have a belief I'm that which is never changed, is never I can't know it's here because it never came. Yeah, it's always been here. Yeah. It's sort of like the fish in water. The fish has probably no idea of water because it's in it, completely immersed in it all the time until it gets caught and then it's flipping out on the deck of the boat. Yeah. I feel that sort of like that. So I feel a lot of things people do are trying to get a certain a mental balance or a wellness, yes, a physical wellness, an emotional wellness, because that goes with the experience. Yeah, if I'm feeling better, if I'm not sick, the day seems brighter. Yes, so that can affect the experience. But what's before experience? What is being is not an experience. Being is being. Yeah, and so I have my own. I have those are uh, bad stick fingered drawings of my feeling of it today. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so you're saying what you think they may be talking about with spiritual disease is really just a heightened condition of the mental, and that the
I would
spirit
say
is
it's
not
now a
stuff.
more base condition of the mental, the emotion, and the physical, like a vague malaise or a discomfort that maybe you didn't have when you were a kid, but when the brain developed, you started to. You know, the underlying irritability, restlessness, and discontent that drives an alcoholic that you can't really put your finger on, but it affects everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I feel that just like, in a weird way, when you read the Old Testament of the Bible, which I don't, but when I've heard it, God sounds like the head to me. Yeah. I'm a jealous God. I will not put up with any God put before me. It sounds like my head. I think they were listening to the head thinking it was God or something. I swear to God, it's scary. I'm going to smote you and you got to sacrifice and prove your love. It sounds like the head. Yeah. So I feel, yeah, I feel more has been revealed. And I think a lot of time, they gave it a name. I think it was just a deeper, uh, maybe more of the unconscious mental activity. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I just don't believe spirit gets sick. I don't think it's like a body. I don't think, see, if the only way we can know something is from what we know, yeah, and while what we know is a physical, emotional, mental, the only way we can see the spirit is in those terms. And I don't think it's not in those terms, yeah. It's not like the mental state can have illness, but I don't see the spirit having illness, yeah. Mental states, emotional maladies, yes, but I don't think the spirit has maladies. Yeah, I don't. It's just an opinion. It doesn't matter, really. But I think this is what's said in, the vision for us. We know but a little, and more is going to be revealed. I think there may be, uh, more is being revealed. So, yeah,
Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this isn't like, the big book isn't like swearing on a Bible. You don't take everything at face value. Yeah, they were just like us, make mistakes. We had blind sides. We don't know what was going on. Yeah. And I believe really the big book was a download with sometimes a little parts of us in there, but a real download, I feel. And a solution was brought here finally concerning addiction. Yeah, 1935. It was like a comet in like astrology, a comet broke through the mental atmosphere and there was a solution. Yeah, they found a solution to an unsolvable situation at that time, alcoholism. Most people did not get well. They were up in cellars or down in cellars or attics, or that's just Uncle Joe, or in jail or hospitals. Yes. And even I remember one of the churches we used to have meetings at, they had one of those big Bibles, and they had a place where someone stood and read. And I looked at it this one night when we were going to the room, and it was open to a psalm. And in that psalm, they were bitching about winos. Even back then, they had no idea how to fucking deal with winos and shit. I mean, it's just like, yeah. So this is a solution, and it's large enough to be added to. Yeah, it's not like it's not an arthritic, rigid, dogmatic solution, is it? No. Look at what 100 different. I mean, how many different groups use the 12 steps? I mean, it wasn't like a steel rubber band. It has a lot of give. It opens up a lot. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how I feel about it with the spirit stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Your analogy of the sky and the clouds is a really good one.
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you.
that's the thing. See, if all we know are the clouds and the weather fronts, yeah, they're being brought about because of the sky, but we don't see it, yeah, until you do. It's just sort of the same thing. You know, when you're so focused, you missed a larger panoramic view. Yeah, so self-centeredness is a very focusing, very myopic window to look out of. Yeah, yeah. To authenticate itself, everything has to seem small in a way, other than the window, which is seen to be big. Yeah, self-centeredness is a pair of glasses in search of a new pair of glasses. Really, as Chuck C would say, because you're just not seeing well. Yeah. Through self-centeredness, you see everything as how it pertains to you. I mean, that's a that's a quite a bias interpretation right there, completely. Yeah, yeah. The point is yeah, like Mary said, yeah. The idea of recognizing something that you called you as a failed system can be helpful. It worked with me. Yeah, it did. I'm a true believer that the diagnosis of fear is that it's an effect of self-reliance, like he says in the big book. He says, why do you have so much fear today? Isn't it because self-reliance has failed you? So most people think fear is a cause of a lot of shit, which it seems to be. But what's causing the fear is self-reliance. That's an incredible diagnosis, right in our big book. Incredible, literally. Most people never even get close to that. They don't. They're just dealing with fear and picking up a lot of skillful means to lessen the blow and shit. Or this is about, if you see the root of it, you'll get relief from the effect. Yeah. So if you see the root is self-reliance and you realize it's a failed system, I'm telling you, you're going to outgrow fear, because the fear grows in the petri dish of self-reliance or anxiety, I'd say, mostly, not fear. Yeah. So, there's solutions and then there's solutions. Yeah. Some solutions half-ass work a little, and then they usually erode it over time and they demand more work. And then there's a solution which really is, like I got struck sober. Yeah, really. Just a day at the office, regular day at the alcoholic office. Just came out of a blackout. Shit, something happened. Stopped my head, and then like a public announcement, instead of the screen just false evidence appearing real about Paul, a public announcement overtook the screen, and the announcement was, "You're fucked." Yeah, and then the second announcement was, "And you're not managerial quality." And then life conspired to bring me to my first meeting that night. And I've been sober ever since. And I swear, I have never had a strong urge or feeling or thought about drinking or using. for 34 years. I would know it because they would have been so sporadic and so unusual. I would have remembered. I haven't had one. I may have one today, but I haven't. 34 years. That to me fits into the solution to me. That's a solution. All the other quote unquote solutions pale incredibly to that solution. And especially because it was about an incredibly powerful problem, my active addiction. I mean, I was tattooed by that addiction. I went to places, jails and rehabs based on that condition. For that to be changed was incredible, revelatory, blew my whole mind out, yeah, over time. Yeah, and I really, really knew that something had done for me what I couldn't do for myself. It was just completely end of story, being convinced, surrendered. Yeah. Now, the only other solution in a way that I found in that same ballpark was the solution. So here I have recovery now, or it has me, was this idea of non-duality, which was a recognition that all that I called me were activities that are not of me. Yes. It brought an illumination to the first solution. It brought a deeper illumination through the first solution about before there was a need for solution, really, which is totally mind-boggling. So then my searching for new or better solutions stopped years ago, and this idea of non-duality became the last answer concerning that topic, which is a fucking great answer because it took away all need for any other answers. It just put everything to rest, just like sobriety put to rest that radioactive isotope of urge, yeah, to get out, to escape, to take something. Yeah, so I've had a 1-2 punch of solutions in this life that most of the shit that's peddled as a solution I see as totally bogus, really. I do. Yeah. So it'd be great if we could initiate these solutions, but I think that you just, they either happen or not. You want to call it the great mystery of grace, but I feel grace is readily available, and you never know, but you will know after, but you never know, but you will know when it hits you. Yeah, so yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I had that urge, I probably would have went back out, probably. I didn't say any no to urges, you know. I was completely defeated. And I moved at the reaction to the head. Every move was based on listening to the head. Every one. And for that to be stopped, the head could never even imagined it, really. Yeah, because all of its imaginings, it's included. So it can't imagine its absence. That's for you and I to find out. Yeah. Because it can't imagine it. It cannot do it justice. It cannot. Yeah. And it may look super ordinary from its point of view, but it's awesome. Because to be free on a day at a time from that fucking bondage of self is a most humbling gift. Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, thank you. I think we started with Kate and I just went off somewhere. Yes. All right.
That's
Anyone
great,
else?
Paul. Thank you. We have one more question from Bruce.
Bruce, yes.
Yeah, we have one more question from Bruce.
Yeah, all right.
All right. Hi, everyone.
Bruce.
Yeah, Paul, thank you for the last few minutes. Yeah, what I picked up right away in the beginning, I felt like the AA, well, or the 12 steps would kind of put it in the hands of the police, the thief, the thief into the hands of the police. And I used to read the 12 steps in the beginning of the meeting a lot, and tried to emphasize exact nature, but of course, seemed to pass over everyone's head. And then even going into non-duality for quite some time, and then quite a depth. It's still, every time I hear someone say it's I, the identity as I, yeah, sure, there's I am, but then there's always I am what? I am something, I am something, I am this or I am that. And it isn't that. And even identifying as a spirit, boy, that took a long time. And then, after listening to ones like you for a while, recognizing that even the identity as I or me, I'm not my hand either. That's in the glove. And very touching that you put that, you add it. And so just finally, I may be off base here. Addiction to me is adding diction. Whenever I adds something to I am, other than, the being, it's addiction. So you've added addiction. It's an addiction. And the autism, I would feel, is like how I feel inside when I feel directed or tried to be forced in any direction at all, other than to have just total freedom in a sense as a person or an individual, trying to survive, anyway. I don't know what you feel about that kind of adding diction to anything.
Yes, that's a good one. Yes. Well, yeah, the language is it's a built-in trance setter. Yeah.
Yeah. I think,
Yeah.
to me, the subject is an object, like you say, it becomes it's a noun. And
Yeah,
yeah.
these
So
things
I
are
I was
all
still vulnerable to that policeman.
yeah. Yes. Well, all the words only play a role as a substitute to a real sense and feeling. The sense and feeling, then when you hear the words, it's like remembering a hymnal being sung in a big cathedral. But the words aren't it. It's that sense and that feeling of I am, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, if we're in a plane flying under the clouds, yeah, we're subject to the weather. Above the clouds, not subject to the weather, but still the view as an individual, apart or separate from the sky.
Yes.
Just a little weird, rather than seeing things from the sky's point of view.
But you're always seeing from the sky's point of view, and the art of this place is seeing it from another point of view. That can be a piece of art. It takes about 80 years for it to, and there's no culmination. It's more like it's like a mural that never gets finished. Yes.
Yeah, so to wake up
I
from
don't
the
see
waking
any
dream.
problem with, yeah, I feel you're more of an individual when you're not one, really. So, yeah. Yeah.
So that before birth and after death, as you referred to. That's
It's
all
sort of like one of those planes that puts out the thing that leaves us a sign, in the sky. It says "Vote for Bill" or something. That's sort of what our life is like. So we're formed by the exhaust. Yeah. I mean, this isn't about I think it's very inclusionary, not exclusive. So the absolute doesn't exclude the temporary. The temporary wants to declare it's the absolute. So therefore it has to, in a way, deny the absolute. That's the dilemma. but the absolute has no problem with the temporary.
And then I even take the absolute as a concept, you know, and then it's, but that's where, you know, I don't even know what that's about.
Yeah.
Thank you
so-
very much. You know,
Yeah.
without this, you know, added diction.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Diction is what? That's words, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
Yeah,
add words to
it
you
was
add
listed.
words to I am, and then the first word is Paul. I am Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You already identified, yeah. As a
But yeah,
person.
this has been a nice meeting. Thank you for everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
I think everyone's been a nice meeting. It's everyone for a couple of years now. It's funny, but this has been a nice meeting. Yes. So, all right, Mike, are we going to finish? Say goodbye.
Yes, Paul, that's it. That's all we have for today. Thank you very much.
All right, let's, Michael, again, thank you for all the service. Fantastic. Walter, decide avocado or mayo. All right, Tommy. We got a new, there she is. Well, I'm going to be seeing some people in Italy soon. That'll be nice, eh? We got Gary. Gary's, yeah, nice to see you, Gary. Stefan, as always. Joseph, he's back. He's back. He's back in his room now. Nice to see you, Joseph. We got Hallie S. Yes. Kurt, always. Kurt's they having a big thing down there this Labor Day, right? With the Fellowship of the Spirit.
Yeah, yep. Little retreat.
Yeah. That place they have it has a lot of blood on the statues. Every corner you take, there'd be a giant Jesus statue with lots of blood. That was pretty intense. All right. We got Selfaholic. There he is. Nice to see
Hey,
you.
Paul.
He's a musician. Nice to see you.
Cheers.
We got Chris. Always a pleasure, Chris. Yes. We got Kerry. Kerry from Hawaii. Yeah. We got Kerry will be in Italy too. Wow. We got Gail from the Pink Cloud. There she is. Jeffrey driving. Don't look down. Yes. Mickey, the matriarch of Madeira. Roman. I'm going to be seeing Roman again. That's going to be, I'm looking forward to all that. Deborah, there she is. We got Jacob and Alex. Nice to see you guys. Thank you, everyone, from you guys. We got Al from Vegas. Yep. We got Oliver from Berlin. Nice to see you. Annette from, I sat at a nice dinner table with Annette down there in Pennsylvania. We've got, let's see, Christine. We got Senna, Lucas, Bruce. I think that's about it. And I think I covered everyone. Hey, thanks. See you guys. We have a talk today at 4:30 Western time, Pacific time. If you want to join us, it's on the website. And then we're going to put up a new schedule when we're away. There'll be, I don't know, I have to figure it out maybe today. Okay, but we'll see you guys tomorrow and Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday. All right, see you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks,
See you,
Paul.
everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.